Hello, my name is Nathan Jackson, and this is Nathan's Neighborhood History. Today we'll be featuring the LaSalle Park Neighborhood, which comprises of two historical areas, both at one point known as Old Frenchtown. The Old Frenchtown area consisted of the Julius Soulard addition to the south and the Daniel D. Page addition to the north. The first building that we'll be featuring is the St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Church. The story behind the church begins in the late 1830s when Bishop Joseph Rosati wanted to dedicate a church to the south of downtown to feed the ever-growing population of St. Louis. To learn more about St. Vincent de Paul's Catholic Church, click on this video here. This house was built in 1845 for a guy named Christian Scheringhausen in the Federal style. Christian Scheringhausen owned this house for a number of years. It was rented out as apartments above and different storefront uses on the first floor over time. As you can see when you go along the side of the building, it has a very, very long building and goes very far back on the street, and actually has an alley house which was connected to the back of the building back in about 1860. In about 1865 or so, this building was sold to a guy named Polacek, who operated a saloon out of the corner storefront between about 1865 and the 1890s. Later on, it was bought by St. John Nepomuk Church. It was used as an old folks home. So this is the St. John Nepomuk Church. St. John Nepomuk Church is the oldest Bohemian Catholic church in the entire United States. Back in the 1850s, Soulard not only had an influx of a lot of German residents, but it also had an influx of many Eastern European and Central European residents from different places such as Hungary, Bohemia, Croatia, and various countries in Eastern, Southern, and Central Europe. Today, Bohemia is known as the Czech Republic. They congregated in this area and built their first wood-framed church on this site in 1854, making it the first Czech Catholic church in America. The church actually grew quite a bit, to the point that by 1870, they actually had to build a larger church to accept the growing congregation. And this church was built in 1870 by Adolphus Druiding, an architect from Chicago, who chose to build it in the Gothic Revival style. And you can see the Gothic features on the church with its pendants on top of the buttresses. The church remained standing as it was for about 25 years. And then in 1896, a devastating tornado, which damaged many, many buildings in St. Louis, actually ripped off the steeple and destroyed the entire back of the church. And so only the front wall of the church actually remains from 1870. The back part of the church was actually rebuilt in 1897 along with the steeple. Behind us we have the Catholic school building, which was built in different parts between about 1869 and 1884 and features Italianate style construction. The church was actually downgraded from a parish to a chapel in 2005, but it is still a functioning church. Twice a year, they hold Czech festivals here at the church. This building is the oldest grocery store building that still stands in the city of St. Louis. The original owner of this building was a guy named Jacob Fritchley, who ran the grocery store between about 1847 and 1850. He lived above the store. Fast forward into the 1850s, and you have a guy named Tobias Bloms who owned this building. And Tobias Bloms actually owned this building in the grocery store, and he lived next door down the street at a building built in 1842 for Bernard Middledorf. Also at this same time, Tobias Bloms had a garden way out at Grand and Shoto, which he grew all the fruits and vegetables and whatnot to sell in his grocery store. This house here was built in 1856 for a wholesale grocer named Matthias Backer. Matthias Backer originally built this house in the Greek Revival style. And you can see the features on the house that were Greek Revival, such as the limestone lintels and the Greek Revival entryway. In 1875, Matthias Backer decided to update his house to the Second Empire style. The Second Empire style features include the mansard roof up top, which in this case is a flared mansard roof, which means that the roof itself has a curved shape to it. The house has been well preserved for many years and still retains many of its original features, such as this cast iron fence. So this area here was part of Daniel D. Page's addition. Daniel D. Page was one of St. Louis's early mayors, and in 1856, he subdivided this plot of land. A lot of the houses in this area were built before and around the time of the Civil War, including the 3 row houses, which I'm standing underneath. These houses here are representative of the vernacular style, which was very commonly seen facing the north side of Park Avenue. So this building here is one of the early surviving row houses here in the city of St. Louis. And it was built sometime between about 1860 and 1864. The builders of this row house were the St. Louis Mutual House Building Company, which was one of the city's first professional house builders who built many houses across the city. And this is one of their earliest known surviving examples. It's a unique style of the Italianate group of styles. It features cast iron lintels above each of the windows, as well as your typical bracketed cornice up top, which is a known feature of the Italianate style. The row was thought to have been built by a guy named Otto P. Koenig, who was one of the architects with the Mutual House Building Company and built the row most likely, and also lived in it. The row today is unique in that it is one of the only examples of this particular form of the Italianate style still surviving in Missouri. So in 1876, this corner at the end of the row had a mansard added to the building. So these houses were also built by the St. Louis Mutual House Building Company in 1863. 2 very famous surveyors and planners in the city of St. Louis during the time of the Civil War lived in these 2 buildings. We had Charles P. Salomon, and he was the St. Louis County surveyor. He also had a young protege named Julius Pitzman, who was his neighbor, who lived in the house directly behind us. Julius Pitzman is best known for his development of private streets around the city of St. Louis. His first private street was Benton Place back in 1868, and when he planned out Benton Place, he was living in this residence right here. He also went on to plan the Vandeventer Place in 1870, which at the time was the nicest street in the city of St. Louis. Unfortunately, that street has since been demolished and replaced with the VA hospital. He also planned out many of the other private streets in St. Louis, such as Portland Place and Westmoreland Place, Washington Terrace, Kingsbury Place, and Parkview, as well as the Compton Heights neighborhood and the Clifton Heights neighborhood. He was well known for using curvilinear street designs to create a more private feel to the streets. So this building is a great example of a Greek Revival building built in the heart of the city for a middle-class family. You can see it has the limestone lintels, the pitched roof, and many of the other features typically seen with the Greek Revival style, which was pretty popular from about 1825 to 1865. This was built sort of toward the end of that period as one of two twin houses in about 1861. We also have in between an 1894 house, which was built much later. This house was built in 1861 for a guy named August Lysa. August Lysa was a lumber baron, and he originally had his house down on Broadway Street and then decided to move up to this area on Morrison Avenue back in 1861. He lived there for the rest of his life. After his death, his daughters continued to live here. His daughters were named Henrietta and Louisa, and they continued to live in this house all the way through about the 1920s. Fast forward to the 1970s, and this house was in pretty rough shape, but a lot of the details were salvaged from other homes around the city and put onto this house, such as the cornice up top, which was salvaged from a school in North St. Louis. So this is one of the many Flounder houses that is located in St. Louis. The Flounder houses get their name from the flounder fish because they have one flat brick wall on one side of the house and all of the features of the house are on the other side. It is thought to have been brought over by German immigrants in the 1840s, and it remained popular until the 1880s. One of the reasons behind why flounder houses were constructed was in order to allow for water runoff while the flounder house was built very close to the neighboring house. This house was built in 1866 in the Italianate style for a doctor named Charles F. Hauck. Charles F. Hauck is special because he was one of the first German-born doctors to have a medical practice here in the city of St. Louis, and he immigrated to the area in about 1849. His house, which was built in the Italianate style, is notable for being 5 bays wide. And why this is important is because during the 19th century, many houses were taxed based on how much they fronted the street. And so it's very clear that Dr. Hauck had quite a lot of money as he was able to afford the taxes for a 5 bay wide home. He lived here for a number of years and had a medical practice, and his sons also continued to live here after his death. They also ran a medical practice. If you go around to the side of the building, you can see the rear wing of the building, which is where they practiced medicine. This building also has a very nice example of the stars, which you typically see on the sides of St. Louis houses. You can see more on the history behind the stars over in the link up here. So this is one of the remaining Greek Revival style houses in the city that features the cast iron lintels, as you can see, with the little peaks. And it also features the transoms up top on the 3rd floor. So this home was home to John Pullis, who was a part of the Pullis Brothers Cast Iron Manufacturing Company. The Pullis Brothers located themselves just down the street in about 1859. Around that time is also when this house was constructed for John Pullis. Pullis also had many brothers, like, for example, William Pullis and Thomas R. Pullis, who also helped with the Pullis Brothers Cast Iron Manufacturing Company. In the early days, they lived here in LaSalle Park before later moving to Lafayette Square. In the 1870s and 1880s and 1890s, a lot of buildings used many different cast iron details for ornamentation, including many right along the St. Louis riverfront, which have now been demolished for the St. Louis Arch. Companies such as the Pullis Brothers would design the cast iron storefronts and facades that faced the front of these buildings. This is another example of the Pullis Brothers craftsmanship also built in 1859 in the Greek Revival style. This example is actually a Flounder House. It also features the street frontage where the building comes right up to the street and has a walk-up entryway. The building was built for a German grocer originally. So this is one of St. Louis's remaining vernacular style 3-story buildings, and it was built in about 1865. Originally, this building was used as a grocery store and later a dry goods store. This house here was originally built in 1874 as a private residence, one of the earlier examples of the Second Empire style. But in 1890, they decided to expand upon this building, and they created the cast iron storefront and the current front of the building in about 1890. The building also features a number of stained glass features as well as ornate cast iron work. Back in 1867, a guy named Robert J. Wilkinson, who owned a barber shop in the area, lived in this particular Flounder House, which was built in about 1860. And at this time, while many areas of St. Louis were very much segregated, this area was primarily populated by Germans who were very welcoming and integrated the African American community with people like Robert J. Wilkinson, who lived here, and over across the street in a demolished house, there was also a member of the Clamorgan family who had been one of St. Louis's most prominent and earliest freed Black families to live in the city, going all the way back to the 1700s. So this house is one of the few surviving 3-story federal-style homes left in the city of St. Louis. Only about a dozen or so are left around the city. This particular house was built sometime around 1860 for Philip Retker. And Philip Retker was a brick maker and bricklayer here in the city of St. Louis. And St. Louis is well known for its red brick homes because St. Louis had very rich clay deposits, and all throughout the city, homes were built out of brick, especially following the 1849 fire, after which they required that homes be built out of fireproof materials such as brick or stone. That, coupled with the presence of abundant brick sources all around the city, created a very strong presence of brick homes all throughout the city of St. Louis. So this house was built in 1878 for a cast iron manufacturer named Ernst Schluter. He was a secretary for the Christopher and Simpson Cast Iron Manufacturing Company, and Christopher and Simpson, best known for a lot of their cast iron work that you can see in Lafayette Square. As in 1893, they founded Simpson Place. Meanwhile, at that time, their secretary, Ernst Schluter, was living at this house, and as you can see, the house has many cast iron features which would have been supplied by Christopher and Simpson Cast Iron Manufacturing Company, such as the cast iron lintels above the windows and the many cast iron details that sit at the top of the house on the mansard roof. Again, my name is Nathan Jackson, and thank you for watching this house. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. And up here we have the Soulard tour, which covers the other side of the neighborhood. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook at St. Louis History and Architecture. Be sure to take one of my walking tours, of which I give tours of 6 or 7 different St. Louis neighborhoods, as well as multiple tours of Soulard and LaSalle Park. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.